Subscribe now. EU Debates.
Well, thank you. I see that I am the old man of the tribe, no? Certainly, I am a man, and I am
That's okay.
much older than my counterpart. So, well, happy to be the old man of the tribe, because certainly I have more experience. And my experience says that the future is unpredictable, which is not very much original. But 1 year ago, we were in Kabul. Everybody was thinking, working. Remember? It was just 1 year ago. The Afghanistan. Who could have imagined 1 year ago that now we would be very much worried about what's happening in Ukraine? And everybody seems to have forgotten about Afghanistan. Nobody talks about Afghanistan. Does Afghanistan still exist? Yes, it is. It exists, and Afghan people, in particular, Afghan women, are suffering a lot. But there is no news about it. It looks like in our civilization and our democracies, we are able to take care of one crisis at the time. Just one. And one after the other, but not several at the same time. There is no room in the headlines of the newspapers to talk at the same time of Afghanistan and Ukraine. And by the way, what's happening in Afghanistan? I am afraid that since continue like this next year, well, who knows what's going to happen next year. But today, everyone is thinking, everyone is looking at what's happening in Ukraine. And I want to say that we have to continue supporting the Ukrainian people. Putin couldn't imagine that 6 months after starting the war, he will be in a weaker position. I wouldn't say retreating, but in a defensive position. And certainly I have to encourage you to support the Ukrainians. I'm not going to say how courageous they are, how hero is Zelensky, because they don't need to be praised. They need support. They don't need applause. They need arms. And we are providing arms, and we have to continue doing that. We sanction the Russian economy, and we have to continue doing that. And it comes with a price. And you young people, you will have to explain to the older people that yes, we have to be ready to pay this price. And the price comes with high electricity prices, with high prices of almost everything, and with social turmoil. And Putin waits for us to get tired. Putin knows that democracies are a state of the opinions, and the opinions will be controversial, and when people will suffer a lot, will say, okay, stop it. Stop this war. People will have to balance their own pain with the pain of the Ukrainians. And certainly for everybody, its own pain is more important. But Putin is expecting that the democracies will get tired of supporting Ukraine. And we have to show that we care, it matters, and we will be supporting the Ukrainians as far as it needs. And I'm sorry to say, the fight will continue. Here in the European Union, we have been showing unity more than ever, quicker than ever. I never expected to be so quick and so strong supporting Ukraine, breaking taboos, mobilizing financial resources, mobilizing the capacities of our armies, not to participate directly in the fight, otherwise it would be the Third World War, but supplying. I remember in January I went to visit the Donbas front line, and the Prime Minister of Ukraine told me, when the Russians will attack, because they will attack, I don't expect the European soldiers to come and to fight with us, but at least I expect you to provide us with the arms to defend ourselves. That's what we are doing. Well, so my all encouragement for you to support Ukraine. and all my immense admiration for the people of Ukraine and the fight the way they are doing. But Ukraine is not the only crisis. Sahel, it's also a problem. Some days ago, the last French soldier left Mali. By the way, the same day that 1 year before, the last American soldier left Kabul. It looks like the West was strategically shrinking, no? And losing positions. In the case of Africa, certainly we are shrinking, and Russia is taking our place. We have the negotiations about the nuclear deal, broken by the US. I hope that we can restore this deal. We have the Kosovo-Serbia, good news today. From time to time, there is a good news. We have made an agreement in order to avoid the next crisis. We are in crisis prevention mode. We have the Tigray, that it doesn't exist until something very, very extraordinary happens. Have Myanmar. You can choose about the crisis. But the big crisis is the triple crisis of financial crisis, energy crisis, and food crisis. These three elements together will affect to millions of people. The Food Organization says that the index of food is at the highest price, 40% more expensive than 2 years ago, 40% more. And for us that we spend in our budget food, it's 15%. It's important, but if in your budget food represented 50%, then this 40% increase will be much more difficult. There are tens of millions of people, mainly in Africa, in a very dire situation because they cannot pay for the high prices of electricity. Well, electricity, some of them, they have never seen an electric bubble. Energy, food, and the financial crisis which is looming. And there is a competition on the energy markets. We Europeans, we can pay higher prices for gas because we can afford. They cannot afford. And they blame us that we take the gas that otherwise will be used for them. And we take this gas because there is no Russian gas. Everything is connected around the world. But yes, this tsunami of this triple crisis, in the next month, you will see we'll have to be very much, not just worried, but taking care of what we can do. And we can do a lot of things. Then there is the China emerging. China is unavoidably the next big power. What China has done in the last 40, 50 years, it's never happened before in the history of mankind. It's an extraordinary success from the point of view of getting people out of poverty and developing a country which now is on the forefront of technology, economic growth, and is selling its political models. So there is a battle of narrative, which model works best in order to satisfy the needs of the people. Not only the political needs, not only to be able to choose your government, which is quite important, but also from the point of view of economic well-being. You are Europeans, we are Europeans, we are very lucky. We are very lucky, we are the luckiest people in the world. Because nowhere in the world, political freedom, economic prosperity, and social cohesion has been achieved. The three things as much as in Europe. The three things at the same time you will not find anywhere in the world, a place in which to be free, to have economic prosperity and well-being, and social protection as much as we do. I am not saying that it is perfect, certainly not. And 20% of the European population lives below the line of poverty. But nowhere else the humankind never has been able to create a model of political freedom, economic prosperity, and social protection as we have done. And that's why people want to come to live in Europe. They don't want to migrate in Russia. They want to migrate here. Second, the third, which is our response to this troubled world, with China emerging, with a lot of crises everywhere, with this triple crisis looming. I think that Europeans, we should be less naive, to have a better understanding of the world the way it is. Because we believed that trading, creating economic interdependencies, and preaching the rule of law and human rights would be enough. And it has been a lot, but certainly not enough. We live in a world of power politics. We live in a world of the former empires, people who were an empire on the centuries ago wants to become an empire again. And this is the case of Russia, this is the case of China. We can say something about Turkey also, an old empire who comes saying, I am a power, I want to play a regional political important role. And dependencies has become dangerous. Too much dependency is becoming dangerous because you are weak and because the other can abuse you. When the pandemic came, we discovered that in Europe, we were not producing a single gram of paracetamol. Not a gram of paracetamol. The biggest pharma industry in the world had been sending to India, to other countries, the production of a basic product, because we believe that the market will provide. If there is an increase in demand, the market will produce more. Doesn't matter where. We are global, no? Well, the market will provide unless there is a crisis. And when there is a crisis, the market doesn't provide. And dependency is becoming a weapon. We have created a dependency on the Russian gas, which now, seeing on perspective, seeing on the last 20 years, it's difficult to imagine how this has happened. How we could imagine that Putin was a reliable supplier of energy, putting 40% of our supplies of gas on the Russian hands. Dependency is a weapon. Everything becomes a weapon. The weapons are not just tanks and cannons. Weapons is everything in which you can be affected by a power decision by someone else. So we have to be more united, tell please to the Europeans, young and old, we are too small. We are only 5% of the world population. 5% of the world population. After the Second World War, we were at 20% of the world population. We have been shrinking to 5% of the world population. And you don't feel very much enthusiastic about producing babies. And that's why we are old. That's why we are old, because we don't reproduce ourselves. And when a human group of people don't reproduce themselves, it's because they have a problem with the future. Because you reproduce yourself in order to continue building the future. So we are 5% of the world population. We are twice older than the people that surrounds us from Gibraltar to the Caucasus, and we are energy dependent. That's not a good recipe for the future, talking about the future. So we have to understand the world the way it is. We have to understand that we are very powerful because we accumulated technological, economic, and social capital more than anyone else. And we have to use this power in order to exist in the world. The European Union was created to solve intra-European problems. Problems among us. The Germans and the French killing each other. That doesn't happen for the last 70 years. Big news. But now the problem is not among us, it's with the rest of the world. With the 95% of the human beings. We are not Europeans. And they would like to live like we live. And some of them tell us, look, you live so well because, you know, have you heard about colonialism? Have you heard about imperialism? Have you heard about the slavery? It's part of our history also. So we have a duty with the rest of the world, and we have to engage with the rest of the world. We will not be able to build walls among our borders high enough in order to defend ourselves from the rest of the world. We will not be the garden in the middle of the jungle. We will not be the French garden in the middle of the jungle. And the jungle is growing. So take your responsibility push for governments who wants to build a united Europe, because if we don't unite, we will not survive. As easy like this. 5% of the world population divided in 27 pieces with 27 armies is not fit for the 21st century. You know that altogether we have a double number of soldiers than the US and more than China? But are we considered military power? We know that altogether we spend in arms 4 times Russia. 4 times Russia. I wouldn't say that the 27 European armies altogether have the same fire capacity than the Russian army. So take the responsibility. Support people who want the Europeans to work together, to get united, and take the responsibility with the rest of the world. Because the rest of the world demands more European role. Every time I am traveling everywhere in the world, people tell me, oh, last time that we see an European authority was 10 years ago. We need you. We don't want the world to be the biopole between China and the US. We don't want a new Cold War. We need Europe. The Europeans need Europe, and the world needs Europe. So build it. Thank you.
Thank you. So I will come back to you with 2 more questions, but allow me to bring also the other speakers in. Before I do that, I found from the questions that I see already, I could see the status quo bias I mentioned earlier very clearly, because there's a lot of questions on Russia, but only one on climate change, which I think shows us the one versus the short term versus the long term in action. So we'll get back to these questions.